A lot of people think that being intelligent, being smart is a blessing. But I'm here to tell you the truth. Being smart is an actual curse. Being smart, being overly intelligent is an actual curse. Let me tell you guys why. Yo, when you're smart, I remember when I was a kid, I don't even consider myself smart to be honest, but people constantly tell me that I am smart. Um, I'm actually a dumbass if you really pay attention. I'm just good at recognizing patterns. Uh, but when you're smart, quote unquote smart, you overanalyze everything. I've noticed this time and time again with myself. I overanalyze every single situation. I suffer from something called analysis paralysis, where I sit around and I consider every single aspect of the idea that I want to implement, and I draw out all the pros and cons. And because there are a few handful of cons that might not even happen, I decide not to go ahead and do it at all. You know, when you're a person who's not intelligent or thoughtful, you just jump into things. I've seen it time and time again. This is why the most successful people are not the smartest people, because the smartest people are too busy sitting around being eggheads, thinking about, oh man, well, if I do A, B, C, D, the consequences could be X, Y, Z. Whereas the person who's not over analyzing doesn't even think about the consequences. They just act. They just act. Now, a decent amount of them crash and burn, but the few who succeed big. When you're intelligent, you don't do that because you're too afraid to take risk. The risk analysis programming that's embedded in your DNA for the survival of the species, it is just on overdrive. It's not willing to even risk 1%. You know, I've tried so many times to do so many different things, and I found myself time and time again failing because I hesitate. You know, I'll play a video game. Perfect example, video games. Video games, in my opinion, I do really think that they show a reflection of your personality, your subconscious, when you're playing them. And I've noticed that in video games, I do a lot of things that I do in real life. I hesitate. When I'm about to make a decision, I hesitate. And every single time I hesitate, it costs me. I overanalyze and I hoard resources. So if I play any game that has an inventory, I will see that I will go through the entire game hoarding resources. I'm going to hoard all these healing potions, all these mana potions, any tools the game provides to me for me to use in active combat or whatever I need to use it for. I will hoard them, not use any of them because I'm too afraid to lose the resources. And I'll get through the entire game struggling, playing the game on extra hard mode because I'm not using any of the tools the game provided to me. I'll beat the game. And when I beat the game, my inventory is full. And the same thing happens in life with me. You know, I have money in my savings account. I have a checkings account. I have 2 investment portfolios. And any normal person, any person who's not over analyzing their situation would just jump and start a business or pour all that money into an investment. Heck, they'll pour it into a random crypto. And they'll come out the other end with millions of dollars. Oh, bro, I'm a multimillionaire now. But me being the person that I am, I'm sitting on it. I sit on it, collecting my 3% interest, thinking, oh, what should I do with this? Should I open up a roofing company? Oh, no, I can't open it up a roofing company because it's going to cost what the employees and insurance. And should I open up a trucking company? I don't want to open up a trucking company because the truck might crash or there might be some sort of, like, dude, I find myself time and time again hesitating. And this hesitation is making me play life, the game of life, on hard mode, literal hard mode. And I've caught myself doing this, right? I've made videos about it. I said, yo, the scarcity mindset, because that's what it really is. It's a scarcity, fearful mindset that is tied to being intelligent because you're over analyzing and you're calculating risk. You're too focused on the negative. You know, that's the problem. When most intelligent people are super focused on the negative, because that's the natural survival mechanism that all of us have. This is why negativity feeds more than positivity, because negativity is all that matters. And you know, you got to think back thousands of years when our ancestors were on the savannah. If something good happened to you, it doesn't matter. If you're walking around in the savannah and you come across a cache of food and it's extra, doesn't matter. But if you're planting crops and you fuck up and you pour salt water on the crops and they all die and your family starves to death, that's what matters. That's negativity. So our brains are already wired to only focus on the negative. And when you're intelligent, you hyper focus on the negative, and it's annoying. That's the other thing. This is why I say intelligence is a curse, because it's annoying. Other people, normal people, they don't like it. It annoys them. It annoys them because you're constantly correcting people. You're constantly saying, oh, actually, it's A, B, C, D, not E, F, G, H. You're constantly shattering their belief systems. Nobody wants to hear the truth. The older you get, that's the only good thing with intelligence. The older you get, you start to realize the bigger pattern. The bigger pattern is that nobody wants to know the truth. Some guy who believes in some ridiculous conspiracy, he doesn't want to hear you explain piece by piece why his conspiracy is not real. Some person who believes in the afterlife and God doesn't want you to sit down with them and explain to them why their religion is fake. Some person who believes some ridiculous political policy is going to help the country in the long run, they don't want you to correct them and say, actually, this democratic policy was already implemented in 1951 and it didn't work out for A, B, C, D country. Therefore, your hypothesis is incorrect. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. It annoys them. So then you get a bunch of enemies. Whereas the dumb person, the person who's just going through life, not thinking about anything, not explaining anything to anyone, not trying to correct anybody, he has his own stupid conspiracy theories that he believes in. That person has a ton of friends. Everybody wants to hang out with that guy. The guy who has no consequential thoughts. Everybody's partying. Everybody's drinking. Who are you going to hang out with? The guy who's like, guys, did you watch the news last night? There's a serious threat of nuclear annihilation that's going to be occurring in the next 24 hours. Russia just declared war on the EU. Or do you want to hang out with the guy who's like, hey, let's get some more booze in this bitch? Everybody wants to hang out with the second guy, man. Nobody wants to hang out with the guy who's bringing the cold, hard truth of reality to them constantly. The party pooper. The fucking scarecrow. Nobody wants to hear that. The bearer of bad news. The messenger of ill will. People want to be happy. People want to live in oblivion. People want to look to a leader who will take accountability for them. They want to just believe without anybody questioning or shattering their system. And the problem is that when you're intelligent, you shatter that system constantly. You're constantly explaining to people why the system isn't real, why it doesn't work, why they're stupid. That's what you're really doing. In summary, that's what you're doing. When you're explaining, I've told people over and over again, part of the curse is that when you're an intelligent person, you constantly over-explain everything to other people, even basic things. And the reason you do that is because throughout your entire life, you've realized that when you try to just do something without explaining it, people are like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing that? So then you start explaining it to them. And as you get older, you get used to explaining every single thing you do to other people. But the problem with that is that you explain even the obvious stuff to other people. And then that offends them because they say, I'm not stupid. Why are you explaining this to me? But then it's a catch-22 because when you don't explain it to them, they still fucking don't know what you're talking about. They still don't know what you're talking about. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Your best course of action is to just not try to do anything at all. Just go through life ignoring and just doing your own thing. But the problem is that you can see, the intelligence is not going to let you do that. Yeah, this is why throughout history, if you really think about it, how many intelligent people were not burnt at the cross, were not executed, were not killed because they had ideas that went against the grain when they could have just shut up. They could have just not said anything at all. Nobody forced Socrates to go explain to the youth why the gods weren't real. Nobody told Galileo or Pythagoras or any of the greats to go explain their concepts to other people and to fight for those concepts. They could have just been like, hey, I believe personally that the world is round, the earth is round. Let me keep that to myself. and they would have lived a fulfilling, long life. Socrates could have just sat around. I don't believe in the gods, Athena, Zeus. I don't believe in those. I'll just keep that to myself. That's a nitbit of information for myself to keep. But the problem is that this freaking gift, which is actually a curse of intelligence, forces you to go and explain to other people why they're wrong. And the truth is that the majority of human beings, I hate to say it, aren't smart. Now, when I say they're not smart, I don't mean that they're idiots. They might have intelligence in certain categories of life, but they don't have like the general intelligence, the general pattern recognition intelligence. That's all it is. Intelligence, when people say this guy's smart, what they really mean in short is this person has good pattern recognition. They can look at a scenario, they can strip it down to its bare essence, and they can analyze it, and they can make a decision or attempt to make a decision. I think, honestly, it is a curse, but it can be used advantageously for society if you can get the intelligent people to be in the room with other people who actually make the decisions. I think that in reality, what happened is these people that are intelligent are specialized in an area. And what they're supposed to be doing, if we were in a tribe, is they would be giving out the ideas. Like, oh, guys, if we go to this area of the map, I'm just throwing out an example here. There's going to be more food there at this time of the year, but there are also more predators. And he would just be the guy who's just saying the stuff, the pros and the cons. And then there's another group of people that are the less intelligent people who would analyze what he's saying and make the decision like, oh, you know what? Based on what he just said, let's do this or let's do that. But you can't leave that intelligent person to himself to make the decisions. He's not going to make it. He's just going to sit there all day thinking. I am a stern believer that in our society, whether we recognize it or not, whether we believe it or not, human beings, they have their vocations. Just like an ant has its vocation in a colony. Some ants are nurse ants, some ants are soldier ants, some ants are foragers, some ants are the queen. It's the same thing in the human society. It's just that we fail to recognize it when we're inside of our own collective. And I think that these quote unquote generally intelligent people, their job should not be to make any decisions. Their job is just to explain to other people what the consequences are and make them make the decisions. But since we're in a society that's so atomized, everybody is an individual, that whole system has collapsed. But unfortunately, we evolved in that system, so evolution has to catch up, and it hasn't. I'm yapping here. Bottom line is, the people who are less intelligent are actually the lucky people, because they're the people who actually have a real opportunity to succeed. Most intelligent people are not going to make it in this world. They're not going to be successful. They're not going to be multimillionaires or rich. They're not going to get any material wealth. They're not going to get the girl. They're not going to get anything. They're just going to sit in a room and think. They're going to sit in their mother's basement and think. And that's a sad existence. So that's why I say that intelligence is a curse. If you're a Steve Wozniak without the Steve Jobs, you're not going to make it. If you noticed, almost every single super intelligent person who's made it has another person who's with them who actually makes the decision. Steve Wozniak, he would have given away Apple. He was giving away computers until Steve Jobs showed up and said, "What the hell are you doing? We can make money doing this. What are you doing?" You need every vocation together in order to progress. Anyways, I kind of went on a yap fest here. I just wanted to say that intelligence, being smart, is a curse. And unless you know how to wield that curse properly, you're probably doomed. Anyways, subscribe, turn on notifications, try to catch my streams. I stream every single day, or almost every single day. In 2026, I will be streaming not every single day. So just try to catch my streams at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Catch y'all later. See, I'm explaining again. Even in this goddamn video, I'm explaining. Anyways, I'm out.